Today on the podcast, I have Tyler Hammett. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Kev, it's a pleasure to be here, sir. Thank you for having me.
Now, I've always had this idea that I wanted to do a show where I bring on maybe my wife and interview her about what's it like living with a writer. But we're going to get all into nutrition and stuff today. But it seems like this is also an opportunity to get into that discussion
Oh, 100.
because, in addition to being an expert in all things nutrition and exercise and health and sports, you're also the spouse of a writer.
Yes, I'm an amazing writer. Lauren writes. That's her Instagram handle. Give her a shout. She's absolutely amazing in terms of her focus and her ability to do the things she does. I don't know how you guys write full books. My brain doesn't think that way. So to live with someone and to see what they do every day, the mannerisms that they have in order to write a book and get in their zone and is pretty crazy. The creative process is insane to be walked through as I see her writing her own novel as well. But
Well, before we dive too much into the writing side of things, let's just tell the listeners a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Tyler Hammett. So what I do is I have a personal training and fitness and nutrition company. It's called Nourish with Ty. So what I do is I coach clients one-on-one through fitness. We do most things basically strength, mobility-based movements, practices that I've learned and had to institute it from, years and years of playing basketball, beating the crap out of my body, to be honest, and really starting off very unbalanced and, going through a lot of pain throughout my career. So there's a lot of, there's many practices and modalities I've instituted with through myself and to my clients as well that have allowed me to live my most pain-free life and honestly most energetic life at, the spry young age of now 29. So I'm getting up there.
So, as someone who is so focused on movement, sports, health, what have you noticed about living with a writer and maybe the challenges of that career when it comes to the health side of things?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, number one, and this is something that I actually think about on a day-to-day basis, simply based off of my height, off of being 7 foot tall, posture-wise, and I mean, again, unless you're at a standing desk or doing things like that, but more so, you're pretty much hunched forward. You're in a prone position. Your pecs become tight. You get in a really rounded position, which leads to not much movement throughout the day. I know you guys tend to sit at your computers most of the day. Your eyes are strictly stuck to the blue screen. You're not getting much sunlight. So as far as regular everyday health, you become very, 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 very sedentary. In relation to or in comparison to something like something what I do, for a job every day, which is a main reason why I'm driven to do it is I like the physicality part of it. But yeah, I do notice that writers, you guys are very sedentary, unfortunately, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned standing desks. What other sorts of things might a writer do over the course of the day to work movement into their routine?
Yeah, so I actually have a 50, you can call it either a 45-15 or a 50-10 rule. So in terms of sitting down, if you're having to do, emails, writing, whatever it is, if you're sitting, say for 45 to 50 minutes, I want you to vary that up in terms of interval and say, all right, so if we did 50 minutes, we have to stand for at least 10 minutes, get up, do some quick mobility, stretch out your hips, your pecs, get your upper back fired up a little more. You can have even just a quick band around to do some band pull aparts. Again, really focus on the muscles that you are becoming the most weakened and tightened in terms of your posture. So upper back muscles will tend to become very stretched out. Front part, so your pecs, your front part of your body will tend to become very tight and very adhered together. So we want to do the opposite and work on sitting up taller, getting up, taking your time. Even for 10 to 15 minutes, go outside, get a walk in, just adding small breaks throughout your day. As we talked about before, I've seen how when a deadline is around that, if you have a deadline at the end of the day, maybe you'll sit there for 10, 12, 14 hours straight without moving, sometimes without even drinking water. So again, we have to take care of, what I like to say is we have to take care of our meat suits while the brain is working. That's what Lauren says all the time.
Well, when you're talking about these, the 50-10 rule or this idea of taking physical breaks from your work on a regular schedule, it's interesting. I often recommend that. There's the Pomodoro technique. Lots of productivity people talk about this idea of taking a break on a regular basis while you're working. It's largely for psychological reasons, though, to give your brain a break. It's
Yes.
interesting to bring the physical aspect into it, which makes me think, what is the relationship between physical health and mental health, too, and productivity and creativity? How might writers improve their output or their writing by getting healthier?
So, great question, Kevin. So, I would say by doing so, generally speaking, if you're able to increase your health, so say you feel better on a daily basis, you have more energy, you have more productivity, that will spill into any type of creativity, any type of writing, anything of that nature, simply for the reasons of if your metabolism is moving faster, if you're able to maintain hydration, so you're staying, much more clear-headed, able to focus on, said task in front of you. And generally speaking, the body is meant to be in motion. Motion is lotion is something I actually say quite a lot. It's a slogan I've tried to trademark, but and just in terms of motion, the body is meant to physically be in motion. I mean, society in general has formed us to be in a place of where most of our life is very sedentary. We don't move, whether it be our form of travel, our form of even think of on a daily basis of, using escalators, elevators, things of that nature. We have been formed into a society where we generally are like meant to not move very much. When the opposite, think of prior to times of big cities and things of that nature, this is going back, in history. We are meant to travel, hunter and gatherers. We are meant to be out moving and moving our bodies on a daily basis or for a majority of the day. So I think to combat those things and get back to where we move better as humans and to simply implement more of those type of modalities into our practice every day, it allows us to stay more productive from a mental standpoint as well. Again, back in those days, they didn't have computers or things where they were glued to, the blue screen for hours and hours, and the body was meant to move and be able to move on a daily basis. So we're, again, living in a society where we're not able to do that as much. So we have to fight to find the non-negotiables that allow us to stay mobile every day. And again, that leads to more productivity overall.
Great. Let's get into the nutrition side of things a little bit here. You mentioned this idea of working a 10-hour day on the computer and maybe not even drinking water. I've heard coffee often referred to as writer fuel. So I have some thoughts, or I'm wondering your thoughts on coffee, tea versus water. How might a writer better drink throughout the day?
Yeah, so in terms of hydration, in terms of your proper hydration, so I know there's a huge thing. If you go on the internet, it'll say everyone tells you to drink a gallon of water. Now, that has to be a myth simply for the fact of someone my size, right, 7 feet tall, and say Lauren, who is 5'8", would not need to consume the same amount of water every single day. Like that's just, it's not possible. And I actually have a friend who says she's a 5'1". She cannot, consume the same amount of water every single day that I would be able to and what our body needs. So a general basis of thumb is what I like to do is say cut your weight in half, and that's how many ounces you want to have per day. So say if someone was 240, they cut it in half, they want to shoot for about 120 ounces of water per day. And you can spread that out however you would like. In terms of ease of access, I always have, and I show you right here, a nice big glass. It's actually not a glass, but a large container of water. So keeping something that is, large in terms of ounces, just having a larger water bottle around a general part of the day, whether it's on your desk, right next to you, wherever it may be, you're more apt to just drink it just because it is next to you. You don't have to get up. And again, the sedentary part, I know we're trying to go within arm's reach. So again, just keeping that around, shooting for about half your weight in ounces each day is a pretty solid guideline. Other tidbits to notice also is honestly is looking at the color of your urine. If it's dark, you need more water. If it's light, you're doing pretty good for the day.
Now, I know something that you've talked about is this idea of not demonizing food groups. But that said, should I worry about too much coffee, too much caffeine, too much tea, or can I kind of say, oh, I'm getting my hydration and I'm getting a little pick me up to get my writing done as well?
So I've found that in terms of caffeine consumption, it definitely varies depending on an individual basis. Again, prime example I could use myself. I am a hypersensitive to caffeine. I can actually maybe say have like a sip of coffee and I feel it right away. I get hot, sweaty, and then I know people, writers. I know a couple of writers who could have a whole pot of coffee at 8 o'clock at night and go right to sleep. So it's definitely on an individual basis. I would say more thinking from intrinsically and from a health standpoint, knowing that having a stimulant within your body all of the time, whether you feel it or not, it does keep your body in the flight or fight mode. So that being said, over time, too much caffeine consumption can, cause some adrenal problems and some problems with kidneys, things of that nature. So it's being aware of how that's affecting you and knowing your levels in terms of your health, blood, getting proper blood tests yearly, things of that nature, being really in tune with your health. But as a general basis, yeah, it is on an individual basis. And if you're still able to get quality rest, keyword quality, quality rest, quality sleep every night, and you're managing your coffee consumption and it's not affecting you on a daily basis in any negative ways, you're able to combat that through motion and proper nutrition, things of that nature. Should be pretty good. So
You touched on the topic of sleep and rest there. I think this is something that's often overlooked. When people think of health and exercise, they're like, what do I need to do? How many kilometers do I need to run? Or what food do I need to eat? But this idea of sleep playing such a big role in our lives. And I know a lot of writers, there's the professional writers like Lauren who are writing 10 hours a day maybe, but there's also most of the people I work with have full-time jobs, have families. When they get time to write, it might be 10:30 at night. And so how do we find this balance of getting enough rest and sleep, but also being able to get the writing and work done that we need to do in our lives?
so I have found, as I do not have to write quite as much as you guys, but in terms of say, a deadline, I think proper preparation in terms of being able to schedule in your time and still, it's hard. I mean, I will not, it is not easy. Getting proper sleep is one of the toughest thing that I found personally and with pretty much most of, if not all of my clients, that this is where they struggle with. Again, with kids being a huge thing and, jobs, again, deadlines, just stress, things of that nature. That is the toughest part. So in terms of tips, what I always give people is to have, when you know a certain set of hours that you can block together, make sure you're practicing proper sleep hygiene. So what that means is you are taking 30 minutes before you go to bed to unplug and look away from a blue screen. From there, I would say getting up, doing some type of mobility, move your body. And then from there, just making sure that you're taking time to de-stress, even some slight meditation for 5-10 minutes, deep breathing, allow your nervous system to calm down and relax from the stresses of the day, the stresses of looking at the screen, things of that nature. Practicing proper sleep hygiene and forming a habit, no matter how much time you have, sometimes they're going to be 3 hours, and other days you may have 9 or 10 if we're on vacation, making sure that you have that proper practice of getting you into the right mindset to receive this rest and your body to fully heal is key.
You touched on the topic of habits there. When I'm working with my writing clients, I tend to book, I absolutely only book a month at a time as the shortest, because I really think from a coaching perspective that habit formation of weekly regular calls is where I can help people the best, because there's momentum and it grows and the habits are formed and clients see success. And I suspect it's very similar with exercise and probably nutrition as well. Can you talk a bit about the role habit formation plays in success?
Oh yeah, 100%. So in terms of Nourish and I have these 4 main pillars. So it's nutrition, movement, healthy habits, and success. So in terms of those things, healthy habits is what, on the prior 3 are what lead us to the success in the end. So that being said, healthy habits is number 1 in my book. I mean, honestly, I think if you're able to build healthy habits, you then from there can plug in, your proper nutrition, your your workouts, your movement, things of that nature. In terms of forming healthy habits, I think they're necessary. Just realistically, they're key in terms of being able to lead yourself to long-term success. So, for example, for my nutrition clients, I have them sign up for 3 months up front. I want people to be committed to their health, to be willing to make the sacrifices, and to be able to honestly form those healthy habits. It takes time to do so. I think there's a common misconception that most of us, whether it's us ourselves or things we see out in the marketplace, let's lose 40 pounds in 2 weeks, or what I mean, let's drop 50 pounds in a month. Like, these are unrealistic expectations that are set upon us. And whether we put on some extra body fat, or we become slightly unhealthier than we would like to be, we have to realize that we didn't do that in one day. We didn't do it in 1 week. We have to commit to the process and of forming these healthy habits over time that will lead to the long-term success and consistency.
Absolutely. I work with a lot of the writers who come to work with me. It's like often they've already read 10 books on writer's craft. They know what they're supposed to do, but it's executing it that becomes the challenge. So on the health side of things, people generally have a sense of what's healthy food and what isn't. People generally have a sense they should probably be exercising or moving their body regularly. How do you help people over that gap of knowing what you should be doing and then actually executing on it?
So, in terms of what I find when it comes to exactly what you're speaking about, so when it comes to taking action, right, taking that first step is where most of us tend to rely on motivation. I think something I preach to my clients again and again is to realize that motivation is very fleeting. Motivation is going to come and go based upon, it could be based upon quality of rest you got, whether you had a great cup of coffee, whatever it is that day. Motivation is not what's going to allow you to lead yourself to that long-term consistency. What's going to allow you to do that is exactly like how you talk about the way you engage with your clients on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. It's taking those healthy habits and applying those every day, taking the education that we learn and applying those day in and day out to now then look back in hindsight, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days out. Wow, look at all these changes that I've made. Look at all these things that I've been able to do. And realizing again that it takes time for us to get there. Rome wasn't built in a day. We have to, take it one step at a time to get there. So.
What about that? I think most people who have found themselves in a bit of a rut an unhealthy rut, it's not like they're not just exercising. Like, let's say someone hasn't exercised in years, eats terrible food, and maybe drinks too much. Do you tackle all those things at once? Do you kind of say one thing at a time? How do you go about helping someone with multiple issues that need to be addressed on the health front?
So, excuse me. So I think when it comes to realizing that it is just more than one thing, each client is different in terms of what their needs are. I think when there's someone who has, felt like they've fallen off the wagon in terms of health, nutrition, movement, kind of all the boxes are being left unchecked. I think it's starting with whatever is going to be the easiest thing to change, and then building ourselves up from there, from tackling the more difficult and rooted psychological effects that have caused us to be in the position we are. So a lot of times what I found works honestly the best is we starting with the Nourish pillar of movement. On a day-to-day basis, we have to move, whether it's either getting up to just go to the toilet or if it's getting up for our bed or something of that nature. We're going to move our arms to just pick things up, so starting there, it always seems to be a place of which I can start with most people, whether it's going on a 5-minute walk. For some clients, I've had us to the point of it's just simply, I was about to get a rep in, but simply just standing up from your chair where you're sitting and going back down, doing some body weight squats. Movement is, I honestly say, motion is lotion. It sounds funny, but honestly, again, the human body is meant to be in motion. So not only by being in motion and, spurring movement, we're also causing ourselves to take action. By taking action, we can then take that momentum and roll that into our discipline, which allows us to then stick to it consistently. Again, not relying on our motivation to get us to go to the next step.
So we've touched on movement, we've touched on nutrition, we've touched on sleep. But I know something else that you're interested in is simply being outside. And I know for myself, going into the second year of the pandemic here, that's been a challenge. We've had all this news like don't go outside, don't interact. And I know it's played into all my worst agoraphobic hermit tendencies. I'm most happy doing this, sitting at a computer, talking with writers, doing interviews, or working on my own writing, And so when the government says don't go inside, I'm like, great.
You're like, yes.
But, at this point, 2 years in, I feel like I am starting to feel the effects of being divorced from outside. So can you talk about the role that just nature and fresh air and whatnot plays in health?
Oh, yeah, 100%. So getting outside in terms of, say, whether it be just movement or your exercise in general, is where I will always try to shade my clients towards doing. Getting outside simply for the fresh air, what it allows you to do in terms of calming your nervous system. Number one, Kev, I know we're located in upstate New York, so I don't know if you know how the weather is here. It's pretty much gray and gloomy pretty much every day, nonstop. It's crazy. So that being said, on the days that when there is some sunshine, right, we try to capitalize on those days. Getting out in sunshine, honestly, again, in terms of managing your stress, it's great for your skin. And weed naturally occur, and we do produce some amount of vitamin D. But again, depending on where you are, sometimes I will suggest for people, and I actually do so myself, take a vitamin D supplement, simply for the fact of not enough sunlight and what it can do in terms of, your mental clarity, in terms of your mood. And, not getting enough sunlight can lead to and have experienced seasonal depression, which is a big thing in places where the weather is consistently, not great. But getting outside, enjoying the sun, trying to soak up as much sunshine as you can on a daily basis. And again, if there aren't days where the sun is going to be out, still getting outside, moving your body outside. I like to go barefoot a lot in the grass. I allow myself to get grounded in the soil and the roots. And there's many calming effects of that as well. And again, what that does is that helps to work on rebuilding your circadian rhythm throughout the day, as we get all over the place from looking at screens, that's strictly just blue light nonstop, and living that sedentary lifestyle. What it does is it allows us to get back in a flow in terms of building that healthy sleep hygiene, in terms of getting quality rest. So it all works. Everything works synergistically in terms of being outside in nature. There's actually a study that I saw, and it was spending 30 minutes a day out in nature, but this has to be out where there's only trees, and out out in a field or something of that nature, not where there's houses and things around, not out in the neighborhood per se. You are 75% more or less likely to keep your stress levels down for your entire life, just entire life, 30 minutes a day. That's all you need. So that's always a goal. Personally for me, is in terms of where I'm living, to be somewhere near some nature so I can experience that every day, just simply for the health benefits and what it offers to everyone.
You've mentioned blue light a couple times now. I think I'm kind of casually aware of it, but could you, is this something I should be worried about as a writer? Can you speak a bit about blue light, what it is, and then whether I should be concerned?
Yeah, for sure. So blue light is, it's the back screen or the lighting that is provided from most of, if not pretty much all of our electronic devices. It lights up the screen. It's the way in which our eyes are attracted to the screen. But what it does is, in reference to what I was speaking of before, is too much blue light. So you can get blue light from other sources, not simply from just a screen, but again, where most of us look. So that's where our attention is going to. What too much blue light will do is it will start to throw off our circadian rhythm, so prime example, if you found that you've looked at a screen or looking at your phone 30 an hour, hour and a half before you're going to bed, you're trying to turn it off. for many people, they're unable to go to sleep right away. It takes them sometimes an hour, 2 hours, and or the quality of their sleep will be very poor. So again, we have to learn to balance and to go into control. I thought I had some blue light glasses right here. I was going to show them to you. But I was going to say, so there are glasses that are, there's these really big orange glasses. What they do is they allow you to, again, filter through the amount of blue light that you're getting on a daily basis. If it's something you haven't tried, I would suggest to you, and honestly, anybody that's a writer, anybody who looks at a screen all day, that it would be great in terms of being able to manage that. And in terms of your health, if you did nothing else, if you didn't take care of your nutrition, you didn't go move, you didn't do any of those things. Now, I do suggest them. If you simply did this, I think you would start to notice changes in your sleep patterns. So,
all right. So if people have heard this, they want to learn more about you, they want to see what programs you offer, services, how can people get in touch with you? Where should we send them?
Yeah, for sure. So I do have a website. It's Nourish with Ty. And I also have Instagram. You can get me right on there. At Nourish with Ty also, and email Tyler at Nourish with Ty. So Nourish with Ty is the theme here, guys. Yeah, check me out. I also have a podcast, also a fitness, health, wellness podcast called Talking Fit. All right, it's on Apple and iTunes. So any information, I'm on there, Facebook, we're everywhere, guys. Give me a shout.
Fantastic. Well, we're recording this Saturday, the 18th of September. And I know you have a challenge coming up. Did you want to pitch your challenge to folks?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a challenge starting up actually 2 days, September 20th. All right, is the Season of Change challenge. Now, this challenge is going to be geared towards either people who are beginners, have never really paid attention too much to their nutrition, have never tracked and really realized how they're fueling themselves on a daily basis. And it's also, honestly, for people who have fallen off maybe a bit from the summer. I know summertime, and honestly, probably the past 3 to 4 weeks is a huge time for people for vacations and things of that nature. So if they need a little boost, they need to get back on track and get some consistency and some accountability in their life, this is the chance to do so. If they're interested, again, check me out on any of the information I provided before. And look forward to seeing you guys there.
Fantastic. Tyler, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.